Okay, we're recording. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Leads Kickoff webinar. I think I know most of you guys, but I'm Jennifer Myers, a Community Business Role Development Team Leader, and I'll be guiding through this webinar. I have kind of some exciting news, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Next, I want to talk about our agenda real quickly. High-level overview of our Economic Development Department, of course, the Leads program. So before anybody asks any questions, we're going to record this, and I will post the slides, the recording and the slides on our website. And we may run out of time for questions because I have a couple of speakers that are going to be on. So if you have questions, please feel free to write them in the chat and we'll keep them and we'll address them maybe one-on-one later. But if we have time, we'll definitely address questions. But I thought instead of having to hear me speak the entire time, I thought I would have some guest speakers on the line as well. So we'll talk to a couple of previous Leads awardees. They'll talk about their Leads project. The first one will be Mesilla Valley Economic Development Alliance, or MEVIDA, City of Farmington, and Sandoval Economic Alliance. So we'll have 3 different speakers. And the exciting news that nobody knew about, because I didn't know about it till yesterday, is our division director will be giving a site readiness update. But it'll be at the end, so you have to stay for the whole thing. So that'll be, he's going to have Mr. Mark Roper will be on the line. He couldn't make it initially, but he'll be at the very end. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and get started. So this is our leadership slide. I looked at last year's slide and there's only 2 people. So now we have some leadership now, which we're very excited. We have our Cabinet Secretary, Rob Black, Deputy Cabinet Secretary, Isaac Romero, and of course, Mark Roper, Division Director, who will be speaking later, and Sarah Gutierrez, Deputy Division Director. And Sarah, do you want to just say hello real quickly?
Sure, I'll say hello. Hello, everyone. I probably know most of you too, but for those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, thank you for attending. Today, my name is Sarah Gutierrez, and I'm the Deputy Division Director for the Economic Development Division at EDD, and work directly with Mark Roper to help oversee our division programs. So welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. And speaking of programs, we'll just go quickly talk about our EDD division and our programs. So on the left side, if you're not familiar with EDD, we have the Office of the Secretary, which includes Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, our SSBCI Technical Assistance Program, our Collateral Assistance Program, or CAP. We're also administratively attached to the New Mexico Border Authority, New Mexico Spaceport Authority, and New Mexico Office of Military Base Planning. We do have a new person in the New Mexico Office of Military Base Planning. The Executive Director is Megan Cornett. So she just started a couple months ago. So we're very excited to have her on board. And of course, our Economic Development Division, we have the Office of Strategy, Science, and Technology. That will soon be called a Technology Innovation Division. So the legislative session, they will now become their own division. So there's going to be a lot of changes in that technology arena, which will hopefully include some staff. And of course, my team, Community Business and Rural Development Team, we've got Job Training Center Program, Main Street, Food Hunger and Agricultural Program, Office of International Trade. We also include Outdoor Rec, Film Office, Creative Industries, and Administrative Service Division. So I want to selfishly talk about my team. We have the Community Business Rural Development Team, and there are 6 regions within New Mexico. There's 2 reps per region with the exclusion of Region 4. And I also have another exciting announcement. We do have a new Regional 5 representative for Region 5. His name is David White. He is located in Las Cruces. He's going to be the counterpart to Julia Brown, who's also in Las Cruces. So it's his 3rd day today. So he's being inundated with information. So he gets to be announced in this webinar. So he should be on the call, but feel free to message him, and this is his information. Again, the PowerPoints will be available for later review. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. So what is Leads? I think a lot of you already know, but I'll just go through everything again. So LEAD stands for the Local Economic Assistance and Development Support. It's designed to support New Mexico communities in creating jobs, through recruitment, retention, expansion, and startup activities. It's a really flexible program. Its communities can shape their projects based on what needs of the support the local job creation. Leads are for short-term economic development projects. They range from 5,000 to 25,000. And the ultimate goal is to help build wealth and long-term economic growth in, again, job creation, attracting and keeping expanding economic-based businesses, increase the tax base. More job leads to more revenue, means more libraries, more roads, more community centers, and a business development, helping startups grow, providing technical assistance, marketing, training. And so this is how the projects are going to be evaluated by these criteria. So job creation, expansion, expanding the tax base, and supporting business development. So no drastic changes from the previous years. And who can apply for leads? Well, let's take a moment to kind of go over what the eligibility requirements are. To be an entity, you must be part of an economic development effort that includes collaboration between public and private. And you also have the capacity to drive economic growth within the community and have an up-to-date community economic development plan, along with a marketing plan as well. And also be located within a community that has adopted the Local Economic Development Act, or LEDA. That's for you, David. I know you just learned about it. And also ideally the local option gross receipts tax as well, or what we call LOGART. And again, if you're not sure if you are qualified, so please reach out to your local representative. They can kind of walk you through the eligibility process as well. It's going to be a recurring theme. So the organizational status of the applicant it could be included in incorporated municipalities, counties are eligible to apply for LEADS funding. This includes Native American tribal entities, community stakeholder organizations, New Mexico Economic Development Organizations, Chamber of Commerce, workforce organizations. Again, if you're not sure if you're eligible, please reach out to your local representatives to have a meeting to talk about eligibility as well. So let's talk about eligible projects. So eligible projects, as I mentioned, support job creations of the tax base, business development, and measurable outcomes. So we're looking for some consistency with your economic development plan to make sure there's a clear beginning and end, an appropriate budget, good timeline, and attract at least one of the 3 buckets that are here. Oops, I'm sorry, I keep doing that. So business retention expansion, real estate, technology and entrepreneurial development, workforce development. But the new thing for this year is new regional strategic planning efforts. So it's going to be a new bucket for this year. I'm going to talk about eligible projects, and so we'll kind of go into what would be eligible. And that's why I also invited a couple of other previous awardees so you can get an idea of different types of projects that could be eligible for LEADS. So with that, I think a lot of you already know about business retention and expansion, helping increase existing businesses. So, and there's also a real estate development component to it, approving the industrial parks to attract new businesses, renovate publicly owned or non-profitly owned businesses for commercial use. We also have technology, entrepreneurial development. This includes creating and expanding business incubators, accelerators, provide startups and leadership resources to plan for growth. Communities also can share workspace, co-working space to support freelancers, small businesses, remote workers. So it's a wide variety of various things that you can use this LEADS funding for. So in addition to those, there's also workforce development. You could launch and support a job training program to help with workers' skills for local employers' needs. You also can upskill existing employees and help them adapt to maybe some changing in the industry, to help them stay competitive. You also can work on an entrepreneurship program if there's a high demand sector in your region, work with. And then also I wanted to mention the regional economic development. That's the new kind of bucket that we included this year in the manual. So this encourages regional collaboration as a way to strengthen economic impact across communities. So funds to support strategic planning efforts that bring together multiple municipalities to help with a common goal. So you definitely need alignment between your local EDO, cities, counties, to kind of create a unified growth and competitiveness. So that's a little bit different from last year, and that's why I invited some other folks to talk about their programs. And the ineligible costs, nothing's changed from previous years, same thing. Printed collateral materials, website development, professional development, advertising, trade shows. So no surprises there. Sales missions and related expenses. So the application process. So as I mentioned before, kind of step one, reach out to your local representative and discuss your project and also confirm that your organization is eligible. And once you confirm that you're eligible, your rep will help you have instructions to apply online, and you'll submit your online application. The LEADS portal will be open until May 5th of 2025. And we also would like you to submit a presentation of materials for your virtual presentation by May 19th, 2025. And so I mentioned the virtual presentations. They'll be scheduled May 20th through the 21st, the full days, and you'll present your proposed project and grant requests directly to the review committee. Same format as previous years if you've already participated. It's a total of 30 minutes, 10 minutes for the PowerPoint presentation, and then the rest for Q&A for the committee. We highly recommend including the following that I outlined in this slide. So the committee can really understand what your project is organizational background, a brief overview of your mission, experience, role in economic development, what's your overall project budget, the total cost, not just the LEADS funding. Then also mention where the LEADS funding will be added to the total project. And also include your scope of work, key project activities, timelines, and what's the expected outcome. So please make sure to include that during your presentation. And so LEADS is a very competitive process. So all these applications will be evaluated by our New Mexico Economic Development staff, as well as volunteers from the Small Business Development Centers. But final awards will be decided by the Office of the Secretary, as I mentioned from the previous slide. The funding structure, it's a reimbursement grant. So that means the recipient has to first expend the funds and then request reimbursement. So that's pretty important to understand. The grant period is July 1st of 2025, or whenever the grant agreement is fully executed, and you will have until the end of the fiscal year for FY26 to complete the project. And you'll have to have activities must be completed by June 30th, 2026, and that also includes a final invoice and a project report as well that you will provide to our department. Let's see. So the number of projects funded through LEADS is dependent on our total availability of funds for each fiscal year. Again, as I mentioned, we're not making the ultimate decision. It's the Office of the Secretary that's will recommend who we would like for approval, and then the Office of the Secretary will make the final evaluation. And in June of 2025, so in a couple months, you will be notified if you receive the funding or if you were awarded or denial. And if you have a denial of a project, you'll work with your local rep to see how you can find funding in various other sources. So for those FY25 awardees that were awarded last year, it's time to start submitting invoices, and the reporting is due of June of 2025. So similar as last year, you'll submit your final report via the portal. And if you need instructions, your reps should have click-through instructions for that. And if for some reason, the most important thing to get from this is to make sure that you are going to utilize all your funding for FY25. If for some reason that you don't know if you're going to, please reach out to your representative right now. We can discuss maybe amending your scope, and just kind of keeping us in the loop would be very helpful. So if you don't know who you are, this is FY25 awardees. So these are the awardees from last year's LEADS projects. So if you're on this list, make sure to reach out to your local rep and discuss how to submit your funding and your final report. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or your local representatives. All right, so that's a lot of me talking. So I wanted to highlight a past awardee for LEADS. So if Jessica Lynn from Mavita, if you'd like to unmute, I have your slides and I will click through them. And I'll be quiet.
Fantastic.
Okay.
So this is my title slide, but it doesn't look like there's a title on it. I hope that it's just this slide. Okay. So for those not familiar, hello, my name is Jessica Lynn Robles. I'm the Director of Business Development for Mesilla Valley Economic Development Alliance, representing what is now known as the New Mexico Borderplex region here in Doña Ana County. We are the full service EDO serving Doña Ana County and the city of Las Cruces. Next slide, please. So we were asked to present on how we as an organization were able to leverage the LEADS grant to create a project that impacted our community. And this was in regards to workforce development for us at this end. We are finishing up our third round of the LEADS grant used in this one program, which we have coined as what is now Automation Up as of this last round. Next slide, please. So it all began with our business development aspect as a company and being able to properly answer and respond to questions we have coming in through RFPs just within our standard workforce evaluation phase of site selection. And the realization that as a region, we had old data. Most obvious too was as we're trying to attract the advanced manufacturing skill industry, we really weren't able to find any information on existing workforce positions or exactly what the position looked like. So there really weren't standard SOCs in regards to some of that advanced manufacturing skill set. And so we really decided that what our region needed was an evaluation of our readiness for advanced manufacturing. So we started the study with some objectives, wanting to be able to evaluate and analyze our workforce. So gather what some of those emerging roles are, quantify what our existing workforce in manufacturing was, and then, if possible, help to find that pathway. And so we decided the best way to achieve these was to conduct a study with the LEADS grant, support from DACC, and through Manpower Analytics, we conducted what is the 2023 Advanced Manufacturing Report, the Borderplex Region Skill Set Analysis. And so this analysis was done on a regional level.
Looks like Jessica Lynn got muted.
Yes. I was trying to mute whoever was, and then somebody must have muted you. Go ahead, Jessica.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
So the study finding was a lot of work with Manpower, constant meetings, us being able to direct the study into reaching what our objectives were. And in the end, we actually were able to find some great numbers. Like we started off with an advanced manufacturing jobs in advanced manufacturing being estimated at just under 7,000 for our region. When in fact, we were closer to 570,000 for an industrial workforce with 27,000 in advanced manufacturing workforce. And then 11,000 in the actual student pipeline amongst all the universities, 11 universities within our region. We also identified some of the in-demand roles, some of the roles right now currently being used in companies that were advancing towards advanced manufacturing or companies that were considered advanced manufacturers. And those, actually came out with multiple roles, but the four most in demand were the machine operators, technicians, logisticians, and process technicians. So a lot of that manual labor workforce, but at a more skilled level with the machining. And Manpower actually took that down even more so to provide us with skill sets within that would be translatable into an actual pipeline skill set for people that may not realize what they want to enter as advanced manufacturing. Really, in The inspiration for the subsequent years came from the recommendation through this study. The recommendation was actually, we can go to the next slide, was actually to promote the existing industry certifications. To grow the advanced manufacturing talent pool in our Borderplex region. So we, like I said, we got very lucky because the recommendation allowed us the opportunity to what do we do with that program. So in the next 23-24 of LEADS program, we applied again, and fortunately we were awarded more money, which allowed us to start our pilot year of the New Mexico Borderplex Automate Up. This consisted a lot of planning and pathway, being able to identify exactly what the program looked like. We know what we wanted to do was to help fund and create industry certifications. And so it was workforce development. We identified that working through the existing employers or those employers that we would consider manufacturing and advanced manufacturing would be the best starting point. That ended up being a little bit more work than we thought. And in identifying and working with companies, we realized quickly what we were looking was for the signals. And the footwork came just because advanced manufacturing really wasn't in large scale or existence in our region at that point. But we found that our manufacturing companies were usually working towards what we would consider an advancement in manufacturing. We also had to take it down as far as speaking to some of these manufacturing companies and explaining to them what would be advanced manufacturing. And for those who may not understand it, advanced manufacturing is the use of technology to advance your processes, inventory, and in advancing, in allowing you to increase your manufacturing process. And that was actually ended up being the easy part, because the second part was identifying what industry certifications were actually available within these skill sets. And there was a lot of planning and roadblocks to negate in order to actually get our first company to pursue the funding that was readily available for them. And that was what I wanted to speak on a little bit, was really being able to, the LEADS grant funding allowed us to be a little bit adaptable. And what we identified were micro certifications. Some of the roadblocks being that employers didn't have an administrator that would be available to oversee some of the employees. Others were them not being able to identify exactly what some of these certifications were outside of full long-term degrees. And so micro certifications kind of became our niche for it being more of an easier sell to the employers, but more so to the employees themselves wanting to actually pursue these certifications because they were short run. And once we discovered that, we were able to almost exhaust all of the LEADS funding by about April by partnering with a Society Manufacturing Engineers and their Tooling U program, and then also awarding it to actual manufacturing equipment companies who do manufacturing equipment training. But that micro certification was what inspired us to apply again for that third year. Next slide. Because of the success that we had with the micro certification and working those more short run, and we're talking about less than 6 months for these certifications, and in most cases less than a month and a half. We ended the last season having created over 150 certifications, supporting 7 businesses, and we were ready to grow more. We ended the year in what we considered success, and we wanted to see how we can further grow the company, and it inspired us to also pursue additional funding. So as we went into year 3 of what would now become Automation Up Plus, we were able to expand upon the program in order to incorporate other industries. Other industries, including some of the emerging computer technologies, digital media, biosciences, and my apologies. And then the second expansion came on who our audience was. We were able to move from being able to directly impact people that are already in manufacturing to helping really create a pipeline by reaching the student pipeline, working with our high schools, our charter schools here in the region, and even some of our students in NMSU and DACC by providing either the micro certifications or certifications on equipment or those in-demand certifications. Ended up being those similar to some DACC courses, some USDA certified courses, in addition to AWS certifications through Coursera. What helped us expand that the most was being able to pursue additional funding from the City of Las Cruces ARPA and then the EPE charitable grant. And the reason we pursued additional funding beyond this small reach was to reach more people, but also to work towards making our program sustainable. Automation Up is a program that we want to be around and accessible to employers and the student pipeline for more than just the duration of these 3 years. And that last slide is just the success that we've had from the beginning and our partners. So far, we've managed to leverage 12 different certifications, assisted 14 companies. The next number is my favorite, over 200 individuals. And at the end of this month, actually, we're looking that I'll be closer to 240. We're hoping to end the year at about 250 this year. And that's we wouldn't have been able to happen without the success and the partnership with NMEDD through the LEADS grant. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Jessica Lynn. I think this is a great example of a LEADS project that builds on each year, and you kind of build up, and also it's become sustainable. So I appreciate you doing the presentation for us. So with that, if we have City of Farmington, is Warren on the call? I hope.
Yeah, he was. I saw him earlier. There he is.
Okay, I think I did too. So Warren, go ahead and unmute, and I can advance your slides. So just let me know. Oh, Warren, we can't hear you.
Let's see. Is that better?
There you go. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So Warren Unsecker, Director of Economic Development for the City of Farmington, and I'm actually here for a cautionary tale of making sure you can spend down your funding. But this project is actually coming to completion, and we were able to utilize some of the funds to get started with what is going to be a wonderful addition to the community for our farmers and ag-related businesses. If we go ahead and progress to the next slide, please. So Gateway Park is a keynote central park for the city of Farmington. We've been in the process of getting this done since, I believe, 2022 is when we started the planning process for this. And we, over the period of time, we've cobbled together numerous funding sources and changed designs. But one of the things that I tried to integrate into this and succeeded, but took longer than I expected, was a Wi-Fi system to allow for point of sale for any vendors that are participating in events, especially the growers market that we host in basically a dirt parking lot every year, to be able to have a space that is both shaded and covered from the sun and from the heat, but wanted to make sure that when they're inside this facility that they have access to solid internet connections so they can manage and process payments. Next slide, please. But unfortunately, due to numerous global and local issues, we were delayed by this project in this project. And my piece of the project, being as small as it was, couldn't move the needle to make it go any faster. We had issues with getting the frame for this beautiful structure that we see the plans for here. We had trouble with getting final designs and delays there. We had other events that were being hosted in that area that were scheduled during the year. And so we actually had to bump out our LEADS contract a year, only to realize that we still weren't going to be able to get the project done. So thankfully, I was able to manage some hard costs that were going to be put toward the eventual goal of having Wi-Fi in this facility, and run some fiber to connect it to that facility. But at long last, we are nearing completion on this project. Next slide, please. And this is the status. This was actually taken today. I wanted to make sure we had a fresh eye on what is coming together. But this facility will be most likely done in June of this year. And we're excited to be able to showcase the amenities that we can provide to not only our growers market, but any other events, craft fairs, any kinds of weddings, programs, trade sales, whatever we can host in this space. It'll be a public facility. It'll be available for rent. But we wanted to make sure that, again, that being that it is a pretty solid structure, that they weren't going to have trouble with connecting to the internet on their phones. A lot of folks, they just hold up their cell phone for you to scan or to swipe your credit card. And so we wanted to make sure we have solid internet. There will actually be 4 access points inside the facility, and we're running fiber to it. So it's going to be a nice solid connection with good up and downstream connectivity as a part of our internal network. And so this is going to be an exciting addition. This is a part of a much larger scope of this project. If I don't know if we mind going back to the second slide where we had the broad view, that one there. We actually, if you see the little squiggly line on the right-hand side, that is a river wave that is actually under construction as we speak as well. So there will be a space, an adjustable wave feature in the river where you can actually surf in the Animas River. And then we're also in the phase 1 of Gateway Park where the pavilion is. There will be a plaza space where you can host outdoor events and concerts, as well as a parking area for food trucks and a chili roasting station. So it'll be a multi-use, multi-faceted facility. We'll really draw more customers in, more people in. We're planning to put audio system both internally and externally there. So really a keynote gathering space right next to our Farmington Museum and our Convention and Visitors Bureau. So anyone either visiting the area or new to the area will be able to find out more about the city of Farmington in the process. So all that to say, though, sometimes the inevitable and unexpected happen. And so we have to be prepared to pivot and have to make sure that we know these projects are going to go when they're going, we say they're going to go in order to utilize these funds to their fullest. And so I appreciate the flexibility and the patience that the Economic Development Department has had with me on this project. But we're very excited to see this finally coming to fruition.
All right, thanks, Warren. Yes, definitely, as I mentioned, keep your representative in the loop. If it looks like there's going to be delays, Warren reached out to Lorraine and we kind of could pivot, and he's still in good standing so he can continue on to different projects. So I wanted to have successes, and I know, yes, I'm glad it's all coming together. Thank you so much, Warren.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I'm going to stop sharing, and we have one more presentation. Sandoval Economic Alliance. Is Fred on? He is. I thought I saw him pop on.
Yeah, he was on.
Yes, he is. So Fred, if you want to unmute and then share your screen, and we'll be the last presentation.
All right, let's see if I can find it. Okay, I'm not finding on. Hold on just a second here. I apologize. Sure. It's wanting me to share the not the presentation part. Let me just hold on a second. Let me try to find. I apologize. I had it open a second ago, but when I moved it, it changed where it's at.
Sure. No problem.
All right. If not, I may just wing it.
Okay. And maybe you can email it to me, right? You can start talking and I'll put on the screen. Whatever works. If you can just wing it, if you just want to talk.
Let me just kind of start out by saying that several years ago, we were all faced with the issue of we weren't able to travel, COVID, everything else. Rio Rancho was also kind of a little bit unique and different in the fact that I shouldn't say it's unique and different. I think many of the communities also face this issue, but we did not have a plethora of potential buildings that we could readily market and be able to try to attract companies to. So we were asked to kind of pivot and try to look at what our options were as far as what might be available to market. Okay, does that show up?
Yes, we can see it. Thank
Okay.
you.
So we were asked to look at a program called economic gardening and asked to come up with and implement an economic gardening program. I'm going to be brief on this. We quickly looked at it and realized that, we're a small organization. We did not have the everything we were going to need and the ability, the staff and time and resources, the knowledge and skills and everything to be able to do our own full-blown economic gardening program. That particular, you can kind of see the bullet points there, kind of where it came from. But when we discussed this company, we ended up contracting with them to actually run the program for us. We worked with the local businesses, but we had them do a lot of the background stuff for many different reasons. We learned a lot through going that process. But one of the things they identified is it's very key to find companies that are in that kind of growth, the stage 2, 10 to 99 employees, $1 to $50 million in sales. And it kind of gives some reasons why and stuff like that. They've been doing it for 30 years. They had a lot of experience. We went ahead and tried to do that locally. And what we did is we thought, okay, we're going to, bring in the county, the city, the Chamber of Commerce, all these different entities. Like, let's talk about what business we have that may potentially fit on that. And we started out with like about 75 companies we kind of looked at. We kind of narrowed down to 50 companies. Then actually we narrowed it down to 20 companies. We invited them, hoping that we could get 50 to participate. What we quickly learned is that there's a requirement for the companies to be able to jump through these hoops. They're going to have to put forth effort. It's not just something we're going to do for them. They had to put forth effort. We only got we got, I think, 6 applicants, but one of the companies was not even close to being in that stage 2 business. What we ended up doing is, as we went through this process, we ended up identifying the 5 companies. There's the 5 companies we worked with. To this date, we're probably, with those 5 companies, we're probably in the about 60 to 70 jobs that have been created with these companies since they went through this program. One of the things that came out of it, though, is at the end of the day, if we talk to them and say, okay, what was the thing? What was your biggest takeaway from it? One of them was the fact that the digital marketing aspect of things. And I'm going to jump to that a second. So here's a quick process we went through. I apologize, jumping ahead here. But we did some research, identified them, basically went over them, and then what the companies were asked to do. They were selected. There was an onboarding. We talked about what their focus was going to be. We confirmed that focus. There were things that they had to do. The other entities, the researchers that we contracted with, kind of had to come back and say, is this what you're looking for? At the end of the day, the idea was that they were supposed to get a potential customer list to help them grow. What we found at the end of the day, the highlights were really like the digital marketing. There was just a ton of information that these companies at the end of like a month and a half, 2 months were like, we're still trying to digest all the data that we were just provided. We're given potential watering holes and stuff like that, information on some potential competitors. But what our biggest takeaway from this program is, as we looked at our community, we realized that we don't have a ton of stage 2 businesses. The companies that were very interested in getting our assistance and really helping, that we could help with some of these things, were smaller businesses. So we worked with Lorraine and the Economic Development Department to actually transition a little bit. So rather than have an economic gardening program, we actually developed a micro economic gardening program. And what that was really is basically it was taking the 3 stage 2 businesses and looking, okay, how can we help them? The economic gardening program through the National Center of Economic Gardening was this is step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is what we do. And you enter and you exit. What we found with the microeconomic gardening program, we started looking at all the local businesses we had here, and we started targeting some of them, and some of them came about more organically, where we would be at an event. For example, we were at a meeting in Albuquerque, and came across a company that he was working out of his garage. And as we started working with him, he's a small entrepreneur, had his business. One of the first things we started talking to him, and this is where it's like, it's very, there's no regimented program. We act more as a navigator to make sure they get the services they need. So we act more as an entrepreneurial support service. So for example, the one guy we talked with, he had gone through, figured out his financing. He needed to find a building. So great, as an economic developer, we could help him potentially find a building. So we assist with that. Then we go along and we start developing kind of a plan of action. Was what does he need to do to be able to grow so that he can get to where he could potentially take a part in the economic gardening program? What we found was that he needed, one of the things he said, hey, I've developed this instrument, but I really need to get it patented. Do you guys know a patent attorney? So we connected with a patent attorney. Another entity, we talked to him and he's like, hey, we probably need to refine your business plan. Help with, get introduced to SBDC. So it wasn't that we were going to be recreating services and duplicating services that other entities are already out there, but we acted as a navigator. But we also kind of filled that niche and we became some of these companies' biggest cheerleaders. So when they were at a trade show, if we were there, we were kind of the biggest cheerleader. With that program, what we've found is the end goal of it is we hope these companies can hire. So out of the companies we've assisted in the microeconomic gardening program, there's been about 10 jobs that have been created. Now, that's not a whole lot, but you're talking about most of these companies were 1 to 2 people operations. And so for them to hire the first, second employee, that's a big deal. And so as they continue to grow, sales start happening. For example, one of the companies that we've been working with, he's now in a commercial space, just signed a new 5-year lease on that space. He has 4 employees and has distribution contracts with firms out of Japan. So it's just been little assistance we've been able to provide along the way to help them. And the reason, so this all came about because we've had a business retention expansion program. And we can go and visit those normal companies we visit every year. That's where, we talked about the small business. That's where the majority of our job creation is going to come from. Well, the reality is that these companies were being ignored. And so it was an opportunity for us to step in and try to help fill those areas, kind of take a step to the side from the traditional business retention expansion to give a more focused approach to the smaller operations and to be able to assist them. Our community is rife with entrepreneurs. So what can we do to continue to assist them so they can grow? So where they're creating the jobs so that they can get to the economic gardening program, so they can get to the 10 to 15 to 20,000 square foot buildings and have 20 people working out of their facility. And so it's just been a little incremental process that we've had of these businesses, and each year we're learning more and more. Some of these companies, it's as simple as working with them and trying to help them refine some of their marketing. Again, that digital marketing is one we found that was very key in the economic gardening program, that we could deliver and assist some of the smaller business that maybe didn't qualify for the full-blown program. So that's kind of, a broad, and that's a multiple year. So we haven't just done this in 1 year. This has been a multiple year approach. So starting in 2020 was kind of rolled out the economic gardening program. And then we rolled out the microeconomic gardening program somewhere in 2023 was when I started kind of devising it and kind of playing with it. But it's really developed. 2024 was really the year that it really kind of took off and developed. But it really took a lot of time and effort focusing on those small businesses. But it's been very rewarding from our perspective where we're at. So with that, that's all I had really prepared to share. But if anybody had specific questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions somebody may have.
Well, thank you so much, Fred, and thank you for all the folks that presented. I think it's really helpful to see different regions and what they're doing for leads and kind of experience some ideas about how can you utilize these programs within your region. I believe Mr. Roper is on the meeting. So Mark, if you're on, you want to unmute, I've got the slides ready for you.
Mark Roper's here. I'm not sure if Michigan. I'm here. So before I start, I have a couple of things. I noticed in the chat that Sandy had a question.
Mark, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear me?
You're a little soft. Okay, I didn't know if that was just me. Use your radio voice.
Yeah, I'm wondering why my mic's not. That's interesting. How about,
It's still kind of soft.
how about now?
Mhm.
No?
It's I can hear you, but it's pretty soft. When I do the recording, I'll cut off all these technical issues. Still a little soft.
So I think Mark is having difficulties just to make it so I don't feel bad about my snafu and not being able to get my slides going. So thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I got everything. You can't hear me, huh?
I mean, I can hear you, but it's light. Let's see. He's gonna probably just call in. So he spoke to the chat. I haven't been monitoring it all. So I think I saw somebody about the slides so if you showed up late, I'm gonna have the recording and all the slide presentations on our website. So if you'd like to look back or review some of the information that should be available, probably will happen next week. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat. And I think Mark was going to address something. Oh, Warren, somebody asked about if you could share what government entity provided the CTED fund.
Can you hear me now?
So the CTED fund. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
we can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, Warren. Go ahead.
What I was saying before I get started is I noticed that Warren or somebody had asked Warren a question, and so I was going to say I didn't hear it get answered. So go ahead, Warren, and answer that question.
Sure, and this will be brief. So the city of Farmington actually passed a 0.25% tax specifically for transformative projects and economic development. So that's what that CTED fund was. So that's actually a 0.25% GRT that we generate.
Okay, thank you, Warren. And I don't know about anybody else, but when Warren said that you can surf the Animus, I wonder if Warren is going to be the first one to surf the Animus.
Everyone's sake, I hope not.
Well, if I was really hoping the answer was yes, because
I know.
start marketing it and selling tickets to it and try to make you some extra money, Warren.
Right, exactly.
All right. So great presentations. Thank you, Jessica, Lynn, Fred, and Warren for giving us some ideas about some previous LEADS projects. LEADS is, I missed the front end, but LEADS started as a offshoot from what was the long time ago called the Certified Communities Initiative, the CCI program. And LEADS was born out of that when the CCI initiative was phased out in 2012. So the LEADS program now has been around for 12 years. And we've had a lot of different and various projects come through. So I think it was a nice addition, Jen, and thank you for thinking of it, talking about some previous projects, successes, trials, tribulations, to give everybody some thoughts on how to best utilize the funds for their community. So thanks for adding that. And thanks for all of you that have stayed on. Jen and I have been working on rolling out what is going to be the fruition of Senate Bill 169 that was passed this past legislative session and signed by the governor, commonly referred to as the site readiness legislation. So go ahead and flip to the first slide, Jen, and I'll continue talking. Or the next slide. Anyway, so I want to be clear, first of all, on what we're going to talk about today is not the end all to beat all of how this legislation was worked. The legislation was passed, and it will include the development of a board. There will be a board appointed by the department. This board will review all sites for site readiness certification, and the board will make the ultimate decisions on site readiness certification. So what we're working on now is kind of a jump start to that process. So we'll have to write rules, we'll have to get the board appointed. So it's not going to magically happen on July 1st. You can submit a site for site readiness approval. But we are working, and we're already strategizing and working on putting up names and those things necessary to develop this board, get the rules in place so that we can move rather quickly to getting all that done. But while we're doing that simultaneously, we're also wanting to do some precursor work on sites that are known out there on getting their development. So can we go to the next slide? I'm still looking at the original slide.
Okay, do you see the study participation and criteria and benefit? Is that what everybody sees?
I'm seeing Mark Roper, Division Director.
Okay, well, is everybody else see that?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so Mark, it says the study participation. I'm not sure, there must be a delay on your end.
I think we're all seeing where it says Mark Roper, Division Director.
Huh,
Right.
okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I see.
Yes,
Mark Roper remains the division director on my screen.
Okay, gosh. Okay, so let's start again. Wow, we're just littered with, let me.
Okay, so while we're working on that, I think most of you here, and I am not looking at a list of all the people, but I see there's 49 of us in here. So I think most of you here were around last year when we did a site readiness study for publicly held properties, and we evaluated about 38 different public properties around the state of New Mexico that were submitted mostly by local economic development organizations around the state. Some communities submitted their property, their city or county owned properties independently. And we did that study, and then each of those properties received their information on their particular property that was submitted, and that we as a department have the entire study of all of the different properties, what they are, how big they are, what's developable on them, what the potential is for them. And if you'll remember, that study also did a comparison of those properties as to how they stacked up with other properties in the Southwest region, as well as other and how they were from a competitive balance in a particular industry sector. So what Senate Bill 169 has allowed us to open up and do is to look at sites outside of the public sector, or in addition to the public sector. And so we're going to be able to look and evaluate and get privately held sites under the site readiness purview. So what we would like to do as a precursor to getting these sites submitted to the board and actually getting fully certified is to open up, we're going to open up another RFP. We're going to hire another consultant firm to do a study very similar to what we did for the public sector for properties that you know are in your area, in your region, in your economic development group that are held privately that could benefit from this study. To evaluate where their gaps are in infrastructure, to evaluate where their competitiveness is, all of those different items. So that's what we're working on now. So what I'm asking everybody to do that's on this call, and we will be putting out emails and public calls to everybody to do this, but I thought this was a good moment to catch a lot of you that are involved in leads that will be the same people that will be doing this too, to start digging around and see which private properties, if any, would be interested, would likely want to do this. And are we getting close, Jim? I think maybe she logged off to back up and try again. Okay, so I'll just keep rambling and hope you guys can follow my crazy train of thought. So here's what we're going to do, and here's what we're going to ask. We're going to ask that you identify these properties, you get them to your regional rep so that they can get them to us. And what I'd like to do is be able to not get into the nitty gritty, but to have a firm count on how many properties we're going to be evaluating as part of this RFP. And to make sure that the properties that we are going to evaluate are ready to provide the information necessary to get a really good evaluation. So when we go out to this RFP and we pay for this service, and then at the end of the rainbow, the property owner will get the study for their property. As you know, there's this thing in the New Mexico Constitution called Article 9, Section 14, that's commonly referred to as the anti-donation clause. And so in exchange for receiving that information of their property evaluation through this RFP, they will be assessed or charged a fee of $1,000 for their site evaluation. That way, it's not a matter of we're paying for the study and they get this evaluation for free. They will pay us $1,000 and then they will get their evaluation in return for that money. So as Jen quickly moves through all of the information here. So that was the Site Readiness Act we talked about. There will be a board. Ultimately, the board will identify the site readiness. So the goal of this study is really to give those sites the ammunition and the evaluation that they're going to need to then get to this board and say, look, I have a site here. It's got the things necessary to be site ready, and we're submitting it for your site readiness certification. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Jen. So as you're talking to your local developers, these are the minimum criteria that we have to have for a site. It must be at least 50 developable acres. And I want to highlight developable. It doesn't mean 50 acres in total. It means 50 acres that can be developed. It doesn't mean 50 acres that Warren has in Farmington that's got 25-acre arroyo running through the center of it. It means 50 developable acres. It means 50 developable acres intended for industrial use. Preferably already zoned that, not necessarily required, but preferably already zoned that. And I want to be clear on that too. While commercial development is an integral part of community development, we are not evaluating sites for strip malls or shopping centers or those types of activities. We are evaluating industrial sites. So industrial use must be at least 50 developable acres, must be able to simply tell us the latitude and the longitude of the property. The property owner must be willing to host the consultant and the team for a site visit, be willing to share information about the site, and just generally work with the contractor when they're on site trying to do the evaluation. And as part of this submission, we ask, because we expect that mostly it's going to be either local governments or local economic development organizations that are trying to coordinate this. We need to have a letter from the property owner saying that, yes, they will do this. That, a third party validation isn't good enough. We need it from the actual property owner that they're willing to do this. And then, as I already talked about, what they'll get out of that will be a full evaluation of the property. And when we put out the emails and when we put out the public, we'll show some examples of what happened last year when we did this evaluation of the public properties, what those evaluations look like, so that people can, get an idea, and you can share those with your private developers and property owners so they have an idea of what they're going to get out of it. It's really quite valuable information that they're going to be able to get out of this. We can go ahead and go to the next one, Ken. So again, this is what the study is going to cover when we go out for the RFP: the suitability for the development of the site, best use and the best use for the site, zoning, transportation, utility, and drainage plans, the infrastructure assessment for utilities, and then, of course, identify gaps and needs of the property to make it truly site ready. And then also a competitive analysis, as I mentioned, of what how this property stacks up against neighboring states and similar sites. And then finally, what's the best use for this site? Is it light industrial? Is it heavy industrial? What is the highest and best use for this site? Will also be part of the site evaluation process. I think that's the last slide, isn't it, Jen? Yeah. Okay, so again, we'll be following this up with an email to all of you. And we'll also be putting out a press release just saying that we're going to be doing this. That's going to be specific. We're going to ask that the people that want to have their sites as part of this study give us those indications by whatever that first Thursday in May is. I think it's May the 9th. But don't hold me to that. Whatever that first Thursday in May is, we'll ask that way we can include that as part of our RFP, which sites we're going to be evaluating. And then we anticipate that we'll have a contractor selected and that the actual site evaluation process will begin shortly after July 1st. And then we intend to have the report back to the department and to the individual site owners that have paid their money by the end of November. That way we can have all that information to get to the ones that are ready, get those to the board for approval of site readiness, and start doing the evaluation and how we can then move those sites forward and have them even more shovel ready and marketable for the area. So I'll be quiet and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Fred.
So if I understood that correctly, it's $1,000 for the private landowner to pay for the site assessment, correct?
Correct.
Can we, with say particular landowners, request that they pay like $10,000? I think you know who I'm talking about, but anyway. Um,
If you can negotiate that as a bonus to C, I'm down for that. But
I'd be willing to split with the state, honestly. Or
so yeah, and
Okay.
you know, there's no rhyme or reason behind. It's just that we need to have some value
yeah,
established so that we're not just giving away something that we paid for with public money.
no, I agree with you. I think it's a great idea. I was wondering how you're gonna be able to manage that. So I'm totally on board with the idea. So I just know that particular entity that they're going to want everything for free. So
Right. And that,
All
you
right.
know, and that's the other side of it is it's a small enough fee. We're not precluding anybody that's serious about developing. But it's substantial enough that your pretenders need not apply.
yeah, perfect.
Mark, I think Sandy Jones put a couple questions in the chat related to site readiness.
Okay.
First is, will site certification be included in the fee if they can be certified? Or Sandy, if you want to unmute and just talk to Mark, do that too. She
I
might
think
not
they
even.
need to jump onto another meeting.
Yeah, I think
she's
she
gone.
left
Santa
out.
left.
Yeah.
We can follow up then. There's 3 questions there, Jen. Or 2.
Yes, apologies, everybody. My computer just kicked me out of the meeting, but we'll keep track of all the comments and questions and if Mark, if you just want to address Sandy's.
Yeah. So the fee that I'm talking about, the information from the study. That's what they're purchasing. They're purchasing the data and the information from the study for their property. It has absolutely nothing to do with the actual process, and that's why I started this out by saying, let me be clear. This is a precursor to the development of the board and submitting a site for full site readiness. But this will give you great ammunition to go to that board with really good data and information as to how ready your site is. But you know, this is also not a requirement to get a site readiness certification. It's just a service that we're going to provide to those private entities that we've already done for the public entities. And I think it's worth noting that if there's a public property that we didn't evaluate last year, please submit those for consideration too. There won't be the $1,000 fee associated with those because that is, if it's a public property, that fee will be waived. But we can evaluate those too. So get those to us, and we will do. The new legislation asking if it. No, the new legislation does not exclude properties under 50 acres. But for this purpose of this study, we're not interested in properties under 50 acres. I'm not saying that you can't go to the board somewhere down the road and get a site determined that's under 50 acres to be a site ready site. But for our purposes, from an overall goal of marketing and developing ready sites in New Mexico, we need them to be a minimum of 50 acres because then they're truly developable industrial sites. Okay. Any other question? I'm not seeing any more in chat.
Mark, this is Warren.
Okay, one.
So, quick question. So, like, for example, City of Bloomfield has a private industrial park out there, but you know, I know when I've called them, they're like, well, we don't really know what utilities we have. We don't know what, you know, and so would that be something we could put into this mix to try and kind of tighten up what they're offering as well?
Sure. You know,
Okay.
that's what this study will do.
Excellent.
Is it will, I mean, but they've got to be willing to work with the contractor that we hire too. To provide what information is available. And if they don't know the information, then to have them talk to their utility provider, whereas the co-op or the city of Farmington, on the electricity side. And they're, New Mexico Gas, if it's on the gas side, et cetera. So that they can do a good evaluation of the property. But absolutely, that's why I'm saying if there is private and or publicly held property, that's what they're going to get out of this, is a real evaluation of where the gaps are, what the needs are, and what the highest and best use is. I think that's one of the greatest parts that we're going to ask for out of this study, is highest and best use. I'm not seeing any other questions. And again, thanks for staying on. And again, we'll be sending out more information forthwith to gather up these informations, because we do want to be able to identify how many sites as part of the RFP, and so we get quality responses too. So, and if you have any other additional questions, I think probably everybody on this call probably has my phone number, and you sure have my email. So feel free to bug me. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you all for your patience. I will again post a clean recording and slides on our website so you can reference them later.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Don't hit stop.